Next up, we've got Hot Milk. Hot Milk, directed by Rebecca Lin, and we have a Sophia in this one instead of a Sophie from the last movie. Sophia is our main character. That she's played by Emma Mackey. You Rose is her mother, played by Fiona Shaw. If you don't know the name Fiona Shaw, you know the face probably. She's been in a billion things. I think recently I saw her in season 2 of Bad Sisters, which is a pretty great series on Apple TV. At least in America, it's on Apple TV. I don't know, maybe somewhere else overseas. Sorry, I got a little coffee to drink. I'll mute. So we got Nurse Julieta, played by Patsy Ferran, and Ingrid, played by Vicky Krieps. Creeps, Crepes. I never know how to say her name, but I'm going to say Creeps. I think that's right. I know that Greg knows because I think he's a real fan of Vicky Krieps. Before I get into it, this is a subgenre of indie porn. Now, indie porn is Eric's term. I am just hijacking it. Basically, it means usually very artsy, artistic, independent drama. Usually it's very happy to be going at a very slow pace. And the example he always gives is instead of showing a character going to a door and then cutting to the next scene where they're in another room or in their car or whatever, it'll show the person go through the door and then it'll stand there and watch while the door slowly closes all the way shut. And it has this kind of love for nothing happening, which could also be the love for the mood or the tone or the vibe. What do we want to call it? But in Eric's case, and sometimes in my case, it's just a little too happy with doing a little bit of little and a lot of nothing. The subgenre of indie porn that we have here, though, I'm gonna bring this up. I don't think it's ever been, not ever, but I don't think it's ever been coined, and I don't know what to call it exactly, so I'm going to ask your help. But I think when I describe this, you might recognize it. And I think there's this weird subgenre of indie porn that is a beautiful young woman wandering around aimlessly in a beautiful environment, often the Mediterranean for some reason recently, but it could be other places too. So Vicky Krieps is like the queen of these movies. She was in Bergman Island, which I really liked. That one worked for me and Greg, but Eric hated it. But in the Mediterranean, we had, what was it? A Bonjour de L'Aventura is like the godmother of these movies. People love that movie, but I was growing insane by this movie. It was not working for me. So these movies, if they hit you and the vibe works, they'll be magical usually because it's like you're just bathed in this environment of this fantastic, beautiful, exotic setting with a beautiful woman just aimlessly wandering about. And usually she's trying to work out some emotional issue or trying to discover who she is or come into her own. It's some kind of a version of that. Hot Milk is one of these movies. What is happening? Rose, the mother, is in a wheelchair and she's in Spain. Oh, yes, Mediterranean coast in Spain. She's in Spain and she's there to work on some chronic bone pain, which has her in a wheelchair. But there's an indication she talks to this doctor there, and I don't know if it's a specialist or something. You get the feel she's gone there because he's the king of his field for this. But almost the whole time, he's doing things like talking to her and almost like counseling and trying to get information about her past. And you get the feeling, and he's trying to get her off a lot of her medications too. So either he's like a culty doctor, like not a real doctor, but this cult medicine guy or like holistic medicine dude, or he believes her problems are actually more psychosomatic than physical, and he's trying to get her to come to terms with them so she can start walking and become a full person in her life again. It's not said overtly, but you get the vibe that that's where he's aiming because he's constantly, it's more like he's having counseling sessions with Rose. Okay, that sounds relatively interesting, right? That's the goal of this movie? Not really. That's the catalyst that puts Sophia here in the Mediterranean. And Sophia, her daughter, is like mid-20s and is obviously a caretaker. You get the feeling she feels stifled. She's just there with her mom, helping her mom do everything because her mom's wheelchair bound. Her mom's demanding too. She always needs her for something. So you've got these prolonged sessions with Rose and the doctor, and that gives Sophia an excuse to wander around the Spanish Riviera. I don't know what they call it, the Spanish countryside next to the water. And in that journey, she meets up with Ingrid, played by Vicky Krieps, and Ingrid appears almost like a vision. Sophia's laying on the beach and she looks up and she's blinded by the sun, but she can see the shape of Ingrid as Ingrid like rides by on this horse backlit by the sun. It's a very idealized version, an arrival of Ingrid, like she's this angel. And very quickly, a kind of a friendship slash romance buds between the two. And then most of the movie is Sophia lazing around, trying to come to terms with her parent, Rose, and trying to come to terms with her absent father, who was a Greek guy. And also at the same time, Ingrid is revealing some tragedy and sadness in her past. And that's all that happens for this huge chunk of the movie. And you're by the very end of the movie trying to decide, is Sophia starting to try to push her mom to try to prove if her mom is or isn't truly paralyzed and unable to walk? And there is some weird thing in here about how I was wondering whether Ingrid is even supposed to be a real human being. Like maybe it's done such an idealized, like bohemian fantasy of this kind of free spirit person that it almost feels like she's just a representative of what Sophia wants her life to be. So she's personified and manifested this lover of Ingrid, and Ingrid maybe doesn't really exist and it's just all in Sophia's head. There's some indication that Sophia is very on the edge, but in the laziest way possible. Anyway, maybe the third act had basically like really dealt with all these things, really come to terms with the issues it's raised in a very slow and subtle way. And it basically comes to a head. It's finally showing the confrontation between Sophia and Rose, and then it just ends. It's one of those movies that ends when you're like, you gotta at least solve that problem for you. Instead, it's one of those movies that just goes, what happened? Was it this or was it this? We're not going to tell you. That is not satisfying in a movie like this. Sometimes you can get away with that, but I would say in this movie you can't, because you've asked people to sit the whole 90 whatever minutes it is just kind of wandering around with Sophia, getting to know her a little bit and getting to know Rose a little bit, and you're going to not answer like some of the core questions or at least show some change. Yeah. So this is essentially just becomes a vibe movie because those things never get answered. So you don't really get any character growth, I don't think, maybe the hint of it. So if you like the vibe, then this might be for you. You might love this movie. I actually was going with the vibe pretty well, but eventually it got to a point where I was like, I need to have more of the vibe with this movie. I need to have something. Something needs to be resolved or occur. There's some hints of some big stuff that just never goes anywhere. And some really heavy-handed symbolic stuff with jellyfish and dogs barking chained up on roofs and embroidery that is either says beloved or beheaded. There's stuff like that where it's okay, if you're going to have all this heavy-handed, like weird symbolism, you need to pay that off in some way. You need to give us something, some other meat on the bone. You can't just draw us a painting of meat and say, you got some meat, because we didn't. So I'm going to go, weirdly, I'm going to go 2.5 stars in this because I really was digging the vibe and it really was beautiful. And I really think Sophia, Emma Mackey, and Fiona Shaw are doing some really good work here. And I think that Emma Mackey is a very magnetic actor, and I really wanted to know more about her character. So that's really, I guess, the selling point of this, because you're with her a ton of the time, but the story around her just wasn't enough. So 2.5 stars for Hot Milk.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. For more movie and television reviews and interviews, please subscribe to my Deepest Dream channel, like, comment, share, subscribe. And as always, thanks so much for your support. Take care.